Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. If the BJP wins the elections, what would be the key policies it will pursue to tackle the serious problems the country faces? That's the key issue I shall discuss today with the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha and a man who could hold a very important post in a future BJP government, Arun Jaitley. Mr. Jaitley, because it's in the news, let's start with the apprehensions, some would say fears, that the minority communities have of a future BJP government led by Narendra Modi. Do you believe that is an issue your government needs to address?
We are conscious of the fact that conventionally our support amongst a particular section of the minority has been a little less. And therefore, we are going to be second to none in making sure that we instill that level of confidence in every section of society.
When you say you're going to be second to none, are you also saying that the BJP believes it is important for it to both comprehensively and quickly change the way India's Muslim population, 15% of the country, views your party?
Our appeal to the minorities is of a different kind. After 1984, the Sikh community in India and our role in the 1984 and thereafter has been very friendly with the BJP. In the recent Goa elections last year, we made a special effort and we won such a landslide majority essentially because of the Catholic support that we got. It's a good lesson for us also. We put up candidates, they won.
What about Muslims?
As far as the Muslims are concerned, there are three factors which we are very careful about. You need security, you need equality, and you need economic progress. But if you expect the BJP to get into vote bank politics and saying we'll have religious-based reservations and so on, the BJP is not a party which will go on that track. But certainly, as our three underlying convictions are concerned, we'll go full length to implement these three.
Now, earlier this week, your party president, Mr. Rajnath Singh, addressing a congregation of Muslims, said that the BJP would be prepared to apologize for any mistake it could have made. His exact words were, "Apna sir jhukakar hum shama mangenge." Is that a subtle way of apologizing for 2002 without having to do it obviously?
I was present at that meeting. I spoke immediately before him. And it was an interaction with members of the Muslim community. And there was a very large crowd that had come and assembled. It was a packed audience. And I think he was being... he was trying to instill confidence in them. It was a friendly gesture, and he was trying to be modest. Well, if we are in government and we commit a mistake, we won't hesitate to bow before you and apologize.
Except it wasn't in the future tense. His exact words were, and I've taken them down from TV, कहीं यदि हम लोगों के पाठ पर कोई भी गलती और चूक हुई होगी is in the past tense.
You see, we can hair split on this. But since I was present there and I heard him say this, I'm quite certain he said it in the context of a very modest and a confidence-instilling gesture as far as the future is concerned.
He also made a particular appeal to the Muslims beyond this apology. He said, "एक बार हमें देख लीजिएगा. यदि एक बार में हम आपकी कसौटी पर भी खड़े नहीं उतरे, तो फिर दोबारा कभी भी मेरी तरफ नजर ना उठाकर भी देखें." And then he added, "हम आपसे मोहब्बत करते हैं. मैं आपको यकीन दिलाता हूँ." You are really making a deliberate, conscious, special effort to court the Muslims.
And there's nothing wrong in it. I think that it's a good sign for India. It's a good sign for the BJP. It's a good sign for the minority community members.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I just want to underline, this is a special appeal that you're making, one that we haven't heard you make before.
You see, we are. And I'll tell you, everybody has evolved. As I gave you the illustration, post-84, the Sikh community. Goa is a very important defining moment in the Catholic support that we got. Recently, in the Rajasthan Assembly elections, we put up a large number of candidates of the minority community, more than what we normally do because the winnability factor acts as a deterrent.
Neo-Muslims in particular.
And a very large number of them voted for us. In fact, all the 4 members of the minority community in the assembly today belong to the BJP.
All right, I'm going to just underline that. There is, for the first time, a special appeal being made to Muslims, and you believe it's the right time to do it.
See, it's an appeal being made. At the same time, we are not making an appeal on the kind of moves that some other parties do.
Quite right. But what you're saying is, try us once, we love you, we won't let you down.
That's exactly what we're saying.
Let's come to a second problem you'll face if you come to power. That's the economy. And here there are several issues. First of all, what steps will you take to revive animal spirits and push investment? Because not only has investment in some cases stalled, in others it's actually declined.
You see, I'll go a step further. There's a loss of confidence in the Indian economy. We are no longer the best investment destination. The international investors are not looking at us. The domestic investors think India is also not the best place to do business. So I think in the first instance, a political change itself is a confidence building measure.
A new man will make a big difference.
It'll be the starting point of a difference.
Beyond that?
And beyond that, you have to take a series of steps which have to be business friendly. Your overall perspective, if I tell you, will be that you have to work for enlarged economic activities. You have to facilitate business, the ease of doing business in India. Your policies will have to be in that direction. At the same time, you keep your poverty alleviation programs, because any such move, the weakest sections must also benefit from.
That I fully understand. I want to ask you about certain specific steps that you may or may not consider necessary, because as you know, for industrialists and investors, the key is the detail, not just generality. Industrialists complain, and they do it quite openly, that environment clearances, by which they particularly mean ecological and forest right issues, have not only held up projects, but stalled investment, if not dry up investment. The UPA tried to tackle this by creating a cabinet committee on investment. The UPA believes it succeeded, but industrialists have serious reservations and doubts. What steps will you take to ensure that environment clearance doesn't impede investment?
You will have to balance the needs of ecology with the economy. You can't have the Environment Ministry becoming the new licensing regime. You can't have the ministry targeting some states in particular, and we all know that some states in particular for their ecological clearances were targeted and they were not done.
So you will ensure that economic clearances A, happen faster, B, there's a better balance between growth and ecological concerns.
And there is a coordination between the chief minister irrespective of the party he belongs to.
And you believe that this will remove the impediments industrialists complain about?
You see, if you had 7 lakh crores of projects for years which were pending, and towards the fag end the UPA started clearing them.
It's too late.
It's too late. That is what stalled the economic activity in the country.
A second concern that industrialists have is the number of reforms stalled in the parliamentary pipeline. Issues like GST, DTC, insurance have been stuck for years. Are these a priority for you, and will you see that they're cleared?
You see, as far as the GST is concerned, you have to put the entire infrastructure in place. Personally, I have always said that I'm a great supporter of the GST idea. It's going to be helpful. But to implement it, in addition to the infrastructure, a point which Mr. Modi had made, I think you need to instill confidence in the states, that the states, when they allow the center to do the collection and then it is transferred to them, can have a comfort level with the center being fair.
Will you be better at giving the states that confidence than UP was?
I think so. You see, in the earlier NDA government, the relationship between the center and the states was much better. And I think it was that lack of confidence which really held up the GST during the UP.
Will you also push through things like insurance, which is stuck, on which your party has divergent views, incidentally?
You see, initially when insurance was planned, during the NDA government,
you were in favor of 49, Congress was 26.
26, so the roles had partly reversed. We've actually gone through a series of meetings, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj and myself, along with Mr. Chidambaram. We had worked out various alternatives. Unfortunately, it was too close to the elections and therefore it couldn't be held. But I would put it, it's a proposal on the drawing board.
Now, another issue that matters to people a lot is FDI and retail. In opposition during the last 10 years, you've been staunchly against it. But when Mr. Modi was addressing traders, he said to them, don't be scared of the challenge of big retail. Use the opportunities of e-commerce. And people reading between the lines thought that he might be indicating a possible shift when you come to power on our FDI and retail.
As far as FDI and retail is concerned, the BJP has genuine concerns against this. And I don't think it's quite likely that that policy is going to be changed.
So that door will remain closed?
For the present. I don't know what happens when you implement manufacturing sector reforms and Indian products, low-cost products are available. No policy is a policy for the next 100 years. But as far as present is concerned, I think it's quite unlikely that the BJP...
Now, one of the things that both you and Mr. Modi stress is the need to boost India's manufacturing. But investors and industrialists say that unless you're prepared to make labor laws more flexible, it won't happen. Are you prepared to bite a politically contentious bullet?
Economic reforms, Karan, is the art of the possible. And therefore, never take up the most difficult reform first. When you take up the most difficult reform first, the door closes immediately.
But down the road you can.
Therefore, you must start, if you want to make India a manufacturing hub, India necessarily must also become a low-cost manufacturing hub, because that's how the global competition is moving. You have to create an environment of profitability. Profitability is a good word in today's economy. It isn't a bad word, because people won't invest till they have an...
Part of that environment is giving them the confidence that if they set up an outfit that fails, they can close it. That's where labor laws are critical.
What about comparatively easier steps? Competitive interest rates, the cost of capital, cost of utilities, infrastructural improvements, trade facilitations.
And then labor law if possible.
And therefore you don't start, and whether it's possible or not possible, that's a very difficult challenge in a large country like India. Therefore, I won't make a comment on that. But as far as low-cost manufacturing is concerned, there are several steps you can move in that direction, which is reasonably possible.
Before you bite the bullet of labor reform.
You see, because that's a situation which is extremely challenging and difficult in India, and we must be aware of it.
Let me come then to foreign investment, about which in his speeches on Thursday, Mr. Modi said that he welcomed it. He said it should be looked upon as an opportunity, not a sin. But you know better than anyone else that the UPA government handling of the Vodafone taxation issue has sent completely bad messages to investors abroad. It's put people off. Are you capable, when you, or if you come to power, of cutting that Gordian knot? Because if you don't, FDI coming into India will always be wary.
I don't know whether the past can be reversed, because you already have legislations which have been brought in by the UPA government. But ordinarily, you don't make retrospective legislations in order to create new liabilities.
Which is what happened here.
You don't do that.
So what do you do to tackle this problem?
This principle can be a good guide for the future. How challenging it is to correct what's happened in the past, it's quite difficult. And this is some of the backlogs that the UPA is going to leave behind. I don't know how easy it is going to be to tackle those issues.
But it is something that you will do your best to try and tackle, because it is a hindrance to FDI.
I do. Amongst the various reasons, I feel that the investment environment in India got soured. I think this was one of the important factors that played.
My last question before I take a break and switch to another subject. Will you, if you come to power, retain Raghuram Rajan as governor of the Reserve Bank?
Why comment on individuals? I think the
I'll tell you why I asked this question.
Reserve Bank of India, this is an institution, and these institutions continue. You don't comment on individuals. If somebody is doing a good job, he'll certainly continue. But I don't know. We don't know whether we are going to come to power or not. We hope we do. And therefore, what we do with regard to individuals is only dealt with at that stage.
I underline your answer. If somebody is doing a good job, he will definitely continue. Let's take a break at that point. When I come back, I want to talk to you about two critical issues: defense and the sort of relationship we want to have with Pakistan. That's in a moment's time. Don't go away. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an interview with the BJP's Arun Jaitley. Mr. Jaitley, let's come to an issue that is at the top of the domestic agenda: defense. The Sindhu Rakshak explosion in August and the Sindhu Ratna just a couple of days ago have made it quite clear that the Navy is operating obsolete, if not dangerous, platforms. The Air Force is woefully short of squadrons. The Army has a long list of equipment which is simply lacking. And yet defense procurement is frozen because of fear of corruption. And people ask, if the BJP comes to power, do they realize that the situation is approaching crisis levels for the defense services?
It is. And all seasoned people who know the subject well. And within the BJP, this is a view for the last over a decade, which Mr. Jaswant Singh has been repeatedly saying. Mr. Antony, for instance, got up in Parliament one day and said, if I receive a certain letter or a complaint from somebody, I immediately freeze the procurement. And I got up and told him, please, for heaven's sake, don't do that. That's why India is suffering.
Will you, if you come to power, reverse that attitude?
That attitude has to be reversed. After all, you must start trusting people. Your systems must be in place. If you have the confidence that you are doing things in a cleaner manner, you are not doing things in a manner which is shady, and there is no collateral agenda that the government has, you can't allow one of the most sensitive areas of India, India's security, particularly considering the environment that we live in, to continue to suffer because there is no procurement.
One other critical question on defense, and that's to do with the Army Chief's office. The UPA allowed General VK Singh to actually take the government to court. Secondly, for a number of occasions, the appointment of an army chief has become an issue of controversy. It happened with General VK Singh, it happened with General Bikram Singh, it may be happening again for the third time when General Bikram Singh's successor is chosen this year. Are these issues and concerns, the politicization of the army chief's office, that worries you and that you will seek to tackle?
Well, I don't want to get into individual controversies, but a government must have the vision and the stature and the statesmanship that some issues are sorted out in a closed room. They should never surface in public domain.
And will you also ensure that the supremacy of civilian authority over the defense services is not challenged again by an army chief taking the government to court?
Well, I don't think the principle is ever in doubt. But if a government is fair, if the government is open, if the government has the stature and the vision to resolve these issues in closed rooms, I don't think such a situation will ever arise.
Let's now come to India's problematic relationship with its critical neighbor Pakistan. Many people fear that with a hardline Mr. Modi as Prime Minister, the relationship would plummet. Let me ask you this. In what ways will your attitude to Pakistan and your handling of that relationship be different to the outgoing UPA?
Well, in one sentence, our attitude will be the same which was during the NDA government. So, if we are in government, what Mr. Vajpayee's attitude in the whole process was, the BJP or the NDA's attitude is not going to be any different. But I'll only put one caveat when you ask how is it going to be different from the UPA. This whole passion and desire that you continue to have dialogue at the highest level, irrespective of what the response of Pakistan is. So if you have Pakistan's attitude which is not responsive, then it's not necessary that the heads of the governments meet. You can talk, but you can talk at an entirely different level.
In other words, it will be more calibrated.
It will be calibrated.
Less emotional.
It will be less emotional, and it will be realistic. That if the situation is such that Pakistan wants a serious dialogue, the environment for that dialogue really doesn't have to be created by India, it has to be created by them. One
last question. As an opposition party, you frequently raised the fact that practically all the terror India faces emanates out of Pakistan. Hafiz Saeed, the LET, the Jaish operate freely. The 2611 trial is making no progress at all. What can you say or do that will ensure that if you come to power, these things will change? After all, UPA tried and failed. What can you do that will make you more successful?
Well, it's not India, it's not NDA or UPA, or it's not India which has to make sure how Pakistan conducts itself. A lot in India-Pakistan relationship depends on the internal environment in Pakistan. If Pakistan is less radicalized and it doesn't allow these forces, these kind of elements, to really dominate the relationship between India and Pakistan, I'm sure the relationship will progress.
Suddenly on this, you sound almost like Dr. Manmohan Singh. He had exactly the same problem and he came up with exactly the same answer. In other words, you're saying, on that issue of terror, you really don't have any magic trick up your sleeve that can deliver better than the UPA could.
You see, we can handle security within India and on our borders, not within Pakistan. No Indian government can, whether it's UPA or NDA. But there's one difference between Dr. Manmohan Singh and the NDA itself. Our desire to have a talk will not outweigh the other surrounding circumstances. In other words, terror and talks won't coexist.
Arun Jaitley, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.